Hello and welcome. Thank you for coming here today. We are going to talk about choosing practical design element for your next fundraising event book. Now, you might ask yourself, what in the world is fundraising? And what in the world are fundraising event books? And moreover, what does design have to do with anything? No worries. I will explain all those concepts shortly. But first, how many of you know what fundraising is? Great. And how many of you have been involved in fundraising activities or in the production of fundraising materials such as event books? Oh, excellent. We have somebody in the audience. Fantastic. Now, from those of you who knows what this is, how many of you ever wonder what design has to do with it and how is that important? No? Nobody? That's okay. We'll get into that. We'll talk about it. By the end, you will know it all. Because the truth is, the right design elements can help you raise more money, spend less money, and look good in the end. Today, I have just 5 minutes to provide you with practical elements that will enable you to cut production costs, increase revenue for your university or church or whatever, and improve the organization for which you are fundraising, which is whatever nonprofit you might care about. Secondly, we'll talk about practical tools and design in the way that will impact successfully your next fundraising event book. And by tying it together at the end, I hope you can use those tools and remember them anytime. Concept number 1, what is fundraising? Simply put, fundraising is raising funds, as the name implies. Means going out there and asking for money. Of course, there is a system to it. It's quite different from begging, and we won't get into it today. As some of you know, there are organizations out there that provide not-for-profit services. Such organizations are homeless shelters, food pantries for the poor or the elderly, teen helplines for suicide or for drug abuse prevention programs, and so on. The need in the community is great, no matter what community you're in. And also, churches, universities, hospitals, although they are not entirely not-for-profit, they have a slightly different legal status, they still have a great need to raise money, and you might be involved in such activities during your lifetime. Such organizations have often dedicated staff that goes and asks for money, raises funds, i.e. fundraises, throughout the years by asking money from the government, from cities and local administration, from individual donors, and from private foundations. Now, why do we care about this? Because perhaps you might want to get involved and support the university or your local church or one of those agencies we talked about. As I said, the need is great. Now, what does this have to do with design and event books? The truth is, charity events, charitable activities, and fundraising activities involve production of materials. They can be direct mailings, letters you send to people in the mail. They could be fundraising event books for charity dinners. They can be posters, raffle tickets, benefit concert tickets, and so on. So, because the goal is, in the end, of course, to raise as much money as possible, you need to produce those things in such a way that you are sure you don't spend more than you actually raise. While doing this. So in order to raise more money and spend less in the process and have the university or the church look good, what do? Exactly. We pay attention to details, and specifically, we pay attention to design elements. It's as simple as that. And now, for the practical tools, for the nuts and bolts, pick up your pen and write it down. Those tips and tools that I'm going to give you come from very reputable sources, and I'm going to cite you some books and the bibliography that you might consult later on and from which this information comes. Greenfield's Fundraising Fundamentals, 2002. Chan's 2006, The Best of One Color and Two Color Graphics. Mark's 2006, Color Harmony Layout. And Burnett's Fundraising Fundamentals and Relationship Fundraising, 2002. And also, last but not least, Collaborative Philanthropies by Hopkins, 2005. And now, are you ready? All right. Rule number 1. You have to remember this. Design and produce all your material at the same time. So if you have a book, posters, tickets, menus for the dinner, design and print them all at the same time. This can save you 10 to 40% in production costs. If you remember one rule, remember this one. Rule number 2. If you're a beginner or if your organization that you fundraise for is small, let's say a small local church or a food pantry, keep your design and ask the designer to design everything in 1 or 2, maximum 2 colors. They know what it is. It's called a 2-color process. And we won't get into it right now, but remember this. Ask for a 1 or 2 color process. And don't worry about the look. If the designer is good, they can create gorgeous, gorgeous pieces with infinite variations of shades, nuances, textures, layers, filters, and so on, using just by 1 or 2 colors, both in the cover and in the body of the book. Rule number 3, ask a lot of questions of your printer and of your designer, and most importantly, make sure they talk to one another. That can save you a lot of money, a lot of headaches, can help your timeline and make you look really good at the end. Rule number 4, monitor your sponsors and make sure you get your ads timely so the designer has time to put them in the book. Also, price your ads accordingly so printing the ads doesn't cost you more than what people paid for it. You know, when you raise money, it's more important not to spend more than you raise. Number 5, rule number 5, and very, very important, create a timeline and stick to it. This is it. Those are the nuts and bolts. So let's recap. Rule number 1, produce everything at the same time. Rule number 2, ask for a 1 or 2 color process. Rule number 3, have your designer and printer talk and collaborate to one another and ask plenty of questions. Rule number 5, monitor your sponsors and price your ads accordingly. I must have messed up one, but anyway, the last rule is create a timeline and stick to it. Of course, there are many more things you could do, but if you remember those, you are good to go and your process and your fundraising will be successful. And in case you wonder, why am I here to tell you this and why am I qualified to talk about this? I'm on a board of 2 private foundations in Los Angeles. I've been in the nonprofit field for more than 8 years, and for the past 7 years I produced more than 21 books and a ton of other collateral material, and I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So in order for you not to have